morning, church family. I'm Michael Johnson from the Church of the Advent, where our lead pastor is Dr. Y.D.B. Thurgood Jr. and leading lady, missionary Nakisha Thurgood. And welcome to the Hour of Victory Sunday School. Thank you for inviting us into your home and taking out time to watch us on our social media platforms. Now make sure you like, share, and subscribe so that you can stay connected to our outstanding program. Ding ding, it is time for the greatest school in the world, Sunday School. Today is November 13th, 2022, and our lesson title is Paul Sails for Rome. Now we are still in the book of Acts, and our Bible basis is Acts chapter 27, verses 1 and 2, and verses 33 through 44. Let us take a look at the Bible truth. God gives peace in the midst of life's storm. Now let that resonate in your spirit. God gives peace in the midst of life's storms. Now, our memory verse is from Acts chapter 27, verses 44. And on the King James Version, it reads, "And the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship. And it so came to pass that they escaped all safe to land." Now, the NIV reads, "The rest were to get there on planks or on pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reaches land safely." Let us read our text starting at Acts chapter 7, verse 1 in the New International Version. "When it was decided that we would sail from Italy, Paul and some of the other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. We boarded a ship from Adramyttium, about to sail the ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us." Verse 33. "Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat. For the last 14 days, he said, you have been in a constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't even eaten anything. Now I urge you all to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head." After he said this, he took some bread, gave thanks to God in front of them all, then broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Altogether, there were 276 of us on board. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach, where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. They had hoisted the foresail to the winds and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow struck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and keep them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump aboard first and then get to land. Finally, verse 44, our memory verse reads, "The rest were to get there on planks or on other pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land safely." Last week, we talked about a situation that Paul had with King Agrippa. In that text, Paul stood his ground and challenged King Agrippa if he believed the prophets. And King Agrippa did answer, "Keep this up much longer, and you'll make a Christian out of me." Paul stood in shame and said, "That's what I'm praying for, whether now or later, and not only you, but everyone listening today to become like me, except of course for these prison jury." He did not get out of character and seem like that crazy person who they had wanted him to be. He followed Peter's counsel for sharing the faith. Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope you have, but to do this with gentleness and respect. Stand up for what you believe about Jesus Christ, even in the midst of adversity. This week, Paul is on his way to Rome and runs into trouble. Paul is finally on his way. He has wanted to go for some time, but a short visit to Jerusalem to check in with the apostles turned into a 2-year house arrest. He was falsely accused by the sectarian Roman government, wouldn't release him because they were afraid of irritating the Jewish leaders, but wanted to hand him over to the council because of his Roman citizenship. Now, ultimately, Paul appealed his case to Caesar. The text of the chapter alternate between Luke details description of the sea voyage and Paul's encouraging the people on board to make the choice that won't kill them all. Now, in Acts 27, verses 1 through 8, it records the calm part of his trip. Luke and Aristarchus had joined Paul. Now, Paul, along with the other prisoners, is under the watchful eye of Julius, a centurion. Now, Luke records their voyage. They sailed north from Caesarea to Sidon, where Julius allows Paul to visit some friends. And for Sidon, they curve around the northeast side of Cyprus and land in Myra, on the southern coast of the modern-day Turkey. Julius finds a grain ship in Myra that is sailing to Rome. Now, on board, the prisoners and the companions sail west, then south, and then skim the southern coast of Crete until they reach the port of Fair Haven. In the text, we do not read from Acts chapter 27, verses 9 through 12. Paul tries to warn Julius to stop for the winter. Now, Paul is an experienced sea traveler. He has already been shipwrecked 3 times and left adrift at sea. He knows if they'll launch, they will not go well for them. Now, unfortunately, Fair Haven is not a safe place for a ship to be for the winter, and the ship captain and the pilot convinced Julius to go on a little farther to Phoenix, which has 2 larger shelter ports. Now, Acts 27 and verse 13 through 20 records the beginning of the bad weather. Not only does the wind prevent the ship from landing at Phoenix, but it pushes them out into open water. Now, the sailors haul up the lifeboats before they can be flooded and sink, and use the ropes to support the ship. The wind drives the ship southwest toward an expansion of dangerous sea bar north in Libya. If they run aground, they would be too far from the shore to swim. Now, attempting to raise the ship above the hazards to the crew throws out much of the cargo. They lose equipment into the water and try to slow the ship down from moving. Now, both the crew and the passengers begins to lose hope. Now, Acts 27, verses 21 through 26, returns the focus to Paul. He delivers a relative gentle, "I told you so," but reassures them. Now, although the ship will be destroyed and the cargo lost, no one will die. He bases this promise given to him by an angel. Now, Paul's divine promise is that he would face Caesar and that God would spare those who sail with him. Paul was given a promise. How many of us has been given a promise by God? I know I don't see it yet, but God told me. So this storm was not designed to take me out because I have a promise. Now, in Acts 27, verses 27 to 32, the sailors realize that they are near land. It is too dark to see, so they lower the aft anchor to keep the ship from running into any rocks. Then they quickly lowered the lifeboats into the water to plan an abandoned ship. Paul noticed and warns the centurion. The soldiers cut the rope and the lifeboats floats away. Paul takes control again in Acts 27, verses 33 through 38. No one has eaten in 14 days, and he encouraged them to build up their strength. He takes the bread, gives thanks to God, breaks it, and passes it out among the crew and the passenger. Now, once everyone has eaten, they throw the remaining wheat overboard. In Acts 27, 39 through 44, the sailors find a sandy beach and try to reach it, but the ship gets stuck in a reef and away from the shore. The soldiers plan to kill the prisoners to make sure no one escaped, but the centurion stops them. Those who can swim, do so. Those who don't, find planks from the quick breaking up ship and ride the wave to the shore. Now, the reality of the angel appearing to Paul and his prophecy that all 276 passengers will survive the ship destruction. And you know what? It was confirmed. Our next week's lesson is Paul ministered in Malta. Our Bible basis is Acts chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Now in Acts 28, we learn about the survivors as they're on the island of Malta, just south of Sicily. While collecting firewood, Paul is bitten by a very dangerous, venomous serpent, but he survived. Now the locals wonder if he's a god. Then Paul heals the father of a local leader, as well as many others. And the islanders treat Paul and his companions very well. He also writes his prison epistles, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and Philemon. I want to thank you for inviting us into your home, and I want to remind you to join us tonight at 7 p.m. for our Sunday night service. God bless you and have a blessed day.